This is Sarah Clark, Leishi Seminar Topics, Employee Engagement, Interview, and Presentation. My participants for the interview were Renee, Sheila, and Devin. Everyone that I interviewed is on the secondary math team with me at our school. There was a little bit of a distraction because the day before we had an all-staff meeting and it created a bit of an uproar among the staff, and so all of my questions kept kind of trickling back to that meeting. Devin is a first-year teacher, and he was repeatedly letting us know that he did not feel qualified to answer these questions. So to counterbalance that, I inquired to other people that I worked with whether or not they'd be willing to answer these questions for me, and unfortunately I did not receive a response. So Devin's answers are a bit sparse. My first question is, how would you define employee engagement? So Renee spoke about how she thinks that, especially in teaching, reflection is really important to stay engaged, and that means setting goals and working toward them and then reevaluating where you're at. Sheila discussed how employees should be actively involved in making decisions for the institution, and that engagement is also when employees are actively engaged in increasing their knowledge and skills to be the best employee possible. And Devin stated that he didn't feel qualified to answer that question. So in my reflection on this part of the interview, I thought it was really interesting how both Renee and Sheila thought that employee engagement is really self-driven, and that it didn't really, while your employers provided opportunities for professional development and continuously improving, they really felt like it was up to them to stay involved in their learning and improving as a teacher, and that was how engagement worked. However, Hassel reminds us that it is our employees that drive a business forward, or in our case, our school, and that they need to be valued by their employer, and that employees should be responsible for maintaining their engagement. But I also feel that the responsibility is not just with them. Boynott reminds us that employees, when they feel respected by their employers, they engage more deeply in their work, ultimately increasing the value of the company, or in our case, the school. So our employees should be aware of the level of engagement of their employees, and this is connected to the video where you noticed in my interview it kept going back to dissatisfaction with our school administrators, and ultimately how, despite the fact that Renee and Sheila felt personally responsible for maintaining their engagement, they were distracted and their engagement was affected by their employers and what they felt like was a lack of respect. Second question is, do you believe that engagement is high at your organization? Why or why not? And Renee said, I believe that for the most part, people are willing to learn and grow. They are participating in professional learning communities, but we are not actively involved in making decisions. We have 1,001 task forces, but we have zero say on what we end up doing. Accountability goes both ways. Sheila said, we are definitely encouraged to grow in our professional abilities. However, we are not encouraged to be active in our institution. Devin, later in the second part of the video, when he was discussing engagement in our organization, said he always finds things out by accident. So the general consensus is that our administrators kind of keep us at arm's length. They want us to grow as teachers, but they don't want us overly involved in any actual decisions or management of the school itself. So our school has put a lot of money into professional development, and Swanson emphasized the need for employers to be aware of their employees, especially when they need additional training, whether it's formal or informal. But you're investing in your employees, which is like investing in your business itself. And Boynott said that when a company ensures that the organizational employees maintain the skills that they need to be competitive, it drives success in their business. So this is also difficult when you don't feel valued as an employee at a school. despite the money the school has put into us to be better teachers, and it has been a substantial amount of money. When you don't feel respected, it still affects engagement significantly. What role do your organizational leaders play in increasing engagement? So this was huge. Renee said, I feel like we are students in our administrators' classrooms. The whole PLC process spirals up the entire educational institution. So then data should go both ways, but it doesn't. We are taught master teaching techniques and the best practices, but those techniques are not used with us. So Sheila said, lots of engagement and encouraged around professional development, but very little in other aspects. And Devin said, there are a lot of structural things I'm not fond of or I feel like should exist but don't. So in reflection to this mishmash, because everything kept floating back to the dissatisfaction with our employers, is yes, leaders play a huge role in increasing employee engagement. So even when you have the best technology, the most comfortable office chair, great classroom settings. This year they gave us air conditioning, which was amazing. When you don't feel respected by your employer, when those best practices are not used in a thoughtful and respectful way with your employee, it really, really negatively affects employee engagement. So we feel that but the lack of writing in any of the policies and procedures in our school, it feels as though our administrators don't want to be held accountable to those same specifics. Therefore, they don't want them in writing. And this has been frustrating, and it really pulls away from engagement because it's difficult to focus on doing your job well when you feel like the organization you work for is out of control. So Shahid said that when employees feel valued by their employer, they are more engaged in their work, increasing productivity. The general consensus is that there is a need to increase consistency, organization, and communication. This has a massive impact on employee engagement. Our teachers really, really love their students, but really, really, really struggle because of the lack of respect they feel by their administrators. Does your own employee engagement fluctuate? Why or why not? Renee said, yes. I want to be really engaged, but sometimes I feel like, where is this going? What am I doing right now? And Sheila said, yes, it changes depending on how frustrated I am feeling about how we are being dealt with. And Devin said, I have to go out of my way to find support. So my reflection on this piece was, relationships with our administrators affect our level of engagement, no matter how many task forces or professional development opportunities we are given. Storberg, as stated by Swanson, speculates that investing in human capital increases productivity and the overall effectiveness of an organization. Simply put, when our employers invest in their employees, the payoff is substantial, producing increasing profits through positive client relationships, lower turnover rates, and a happier workplace, increasing loyalty, enhancing creativity, and better communication. So that is, in my opinion, the heart of this interview, is despite all the wonderful positive things that have taken place at our school as far as improving our practices, this disconnect between administration and the teachers is having a massive effect on the engagement of our teachers. It takes away from their overall effectiveness. And these are my references.